Why do you think Tina was beating that young girl so mercilessly? Do you believe that little girl did something so terrible to deserve such punishment?
Or was there a painful story hidden behind Tina's anger? Before we continue, if you enjoy emotional African stories,
now let us go back to the days when Tina was still a young and beautiful village girl. Many years ago, in a peaceful African village surrounded by thick forests and farmland, there lived a young woman named Tina. Tina was the most beautiful girl in the entire village, and people often stopped whatever they were doing just to watch her walk.
But Tina's heart already belonged to one man, a humble village hunter who loved her with all his heart. Every morning before sunrise, the hunter entered the forest with his hunting tools and returned in the evening with fresh game for the villagers. The hunter often visited Tina's parents, promising that he was saving money to marry her properly, according to tradition. Tina smiled and assured him that she would wait for him no matter how long it took. But sometimes, the promises we make with our lips are tested by the temptations we never expect. A few weeks later, the entire village prepared for its biggest annual festival. Visitors arrived from neighboring villages as music, dancing, and laughter filled the air. Among the visitors was a tall, handsome, and famous musician from another village. The moment the musician saw Tina, he could not take his eyes off her. He quietly asked someone to introduce him to the beautiful village girl. At first, Tina paid little attention to him, but their conversation left a lasting impression. As the days went by, Tina secretly began visiting the neighboring village just to see the musician. By little, the love she once had for the hunter started fading away. The hunter noticed that Tina was becoming distant, but he could not understand why. Could have changed the heart of a woman who once promised never to leave the man she loved, ever. The hunter could no longer ignore the changes in Tina. The woman who once smiled whenever she saw him now avoided him whenever he came around. He bought her small gifts.
Please forgive me.
The hunter refused.
I will make it up to
give
you.
up because he still
I need time to
believed
think.
Tina would come back to him. Every promise Tina had made echoed in his heart, giving him hope that their love was not over. But Tina continued visiting the musician, and before long, everyone in the village knew they were together. About a month later, Tina noticed something that filled her heart with fear. She discovered that she was pregnant. With trembling hands and a worried heart, Tina went to tell the musician the news. The musician accepted the pregnancy, and Tina believed she had made the right decision. Few days later, the hunter came to Tina's family compound to see her one last time. As he approached the house, he heard Tina's mother shouting, "Pregnant? Tina, pregnant for who?" The hunter stopped immediately, walked into the compound, and asked Tina if the news was true. Tina admitted she was pregnant. The hunter desperately wished the child was his. He begged Tina not to give his child to another man and promised to forgive everything if she returned to him. Tina quietly told him that the baby belonged to the musician. Those words shattered the hunter's heart completely. Tears rolled down his face as he realized he had lost the woman he loved forever. Unable to bear the shame and mockery of the villagers, the hunter decided to leave the village. Before sunrise the next morning, he packed his few belongings and quietly disappeared. Meanwhile, Tina moved into the musician's house
Tina believed that moving into the musician's house was the beginning of a happy life. She imagined they would raise their child together and live happily as a family. But as the weeks passed, she noticed that the musician was hardly ever at home. Sometimes he disappeared for days, and other times for several weeks without returning. Was this really the happy life Tina had dreamed of? One afternoon, while returning from the market, Tina overheard a shocking conversation. Some women were talking about a famous musician who was preparing to marry another wife. Tina became worried because her husband was the most popular musician in the area. Later, she asked her close friend if the rumor was true. Her friend confirmed that the musician already had children with another woman and was preparing to marry again. Tina felt as though her whole world had fallen apart. When the musician returned home, she asked him if the rumor was true. Instead of answering calmly, he shouted at Tina and told her he was free to marry as many wives as he wanted. Tina stood there in silence, unable to hold back her tears. Months later, Tina became pregnant again. Instead of feeling happy, she became afraid because life was already becoming difficult. After several months, she gave birth to her second child. With 2 little children to care for, Tina worked day and night just to feed her family. Many times, there was barely enough food in the house, and the musician was nowhere to be found. Although she regretted many of her decisions, she loved her 2 children with all her heart. Then one day, tragedy struck without warning. Tina suddenly became seriously ill and was rushed to the hospital. Her 2 little children stayed at home waiting patiently for their mother to return. As the hours passed, the children became thirsty and decided to fetch water from the nearby stream. The villagers later discovered that both children had fallen into the stream. Neither of the children survived. When Tina returned from the hospital and heard the terrible news, she screamed and cried uncontrollably. Many years passed, but the pain of losing her 2 children never left Tina's heart. The musician grew old and returned to his village, settling in the small house he had built. One by one, every wife had children and grandchildren surrounding them with love and laughter. Tina was the only wife without a child to call her mother. Every day, she watched the other women laughing with their children while she sat quietly by herself. Often remembered the hunter she had abandoned and wondered what her life would have been like if she had remained faithful to him. Tears filled her eyes whenever those memories returned. Since Tina had no children of her own, she spent her days caring for the children of her husband's relatives. Although she loved the children, the pain buried deep inside her heart slowly turned into bitterness. Sometimes she became angry over the smallest mistakes and forgot that the children were innocent. Then, one afternoon, a young girl of about 13 or 14 years old made a simple mistake. Tina completely lost control and began beating the girl mercilessly. The little girl cried and begged for forgiveness, but Tina's anger only grew stronger. It was not the girl's mistake that Tina was punishing. It was the heartbreak she had carried inside her heart. Unhealed pain can make good people hurt innocent people if they refuse to heal. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Tubulayefa Stories. Like this video, share it with your loved ones, and tell us in the comments, what lesson did you learn from Tina's story?